I've been doing some bookshelf organizing, moving my minis around. I've stolen my sister's old makeup trolley that's got a bunch of drawers, so I'm in the process of putting all of those into there. But a friend of mine who I shared his Instagram a few videos back, Spearhead Crafts, one of my players as well, has given me a bunch of really cool stuff, including these super awesome earth elemental stone golem sort of things. They look super cool, as well as this awesome Batman sort of head model. There's a name for it, I can't remember what exactly it is, but it looks so cool. So big thanks to that. I'll put another link to his Instagram in the doobly-doo. You guys can check it out. Another friend of mine also printed off this super cool sort of thing. It says Ascension here. I hope you can see that. It says Ascension, the name of my campaign, and then if you turn it around, if I've done this right, it should say Lore Bible, which is sort of the name of my wiki website that I have that everyone seems to enjoy. So it's just another cool little thing to put up there. Yeah, so let's dive into this video. So we are back here at Sebastian's Cauldron. I'm Sebastian. We're looking again at Lost Mines of Phandelver, back looking at the starter set. This is part 2, where we're talking about Phandalin. It is the generic starter village, town, whatever you want to call it, that is included in the starter set. We're going to be talking just about using sort of the town itself and the locations. There's a dungeon here, like most good D&D sort of towns, that always have a nearby dungeon, and we're going to do another video, that'll be the next one, specifically on that dungeon, how to run it, and sort of how to do sort of dungeons in general. But we are going to today just talk about broadly towns, how I sort of prepare towns, my method of doing it, which you can use if you want. Of course, this is advice, you don't have to take it, but I am simply just sharing. Of course, because this is, we're looking at the adventure as a whole, we're going to talk about the big bad evil guy, or the BBEG of this adventure, which is the Black Spider. There's, I'll put the artwork that's included in the adventure there. He's a pretty, again, generic drow villain as written, sort of kind of boring, so I'm going to talk about a few little improvements, little things that you can add to make him a little more interesting. So let's talk about Phandalin. So first thing that I like to do when I'm looking at a new town, a new city, a new village, I like to start with a map. I'm a big fan of maps. I'll put a picture of the map up here. You can find this obviously in the adventure, or the artist Mike Schley, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, has really high quality prints online that you can buy. It comes with DM and player versions, which are particularly useful if you're running dungeons and you don't want the big numbers and everything sort of circled on the player's version. Now, the way that I like to use the maps is I like to simply just show the players the map and say, this is where you guys are. I've used maps in a few different areas, a few different campaigns of mine, sort of as like sandboxy kind of sessions where you show them the map and you tell the players, this is what's available to you, what would you like to do? I like this idea of giving the players agency, allowing them to choose locations that they might find interesting. Of course, in these situations, there is usually always one place, one location that the players sort of feel as though they need to go, and they have sort of direction to go there, and then from there they can sort of pick and choose where they want to go after that. So in the adventure, there are 3 suggested locations that the players go to. There is the inn, of course, because they need to rest and recover. There is Barthen's Provisions, which is the where this caravan is supposed to unload its supplies, and you can get paid for that, which is sort of the job if you're using that hook from the first part of the adventure. And then the Lion Shield Costa. If you remember, in the previous video we talked about that final room with the bugbear chief, Clark, who had a bunch of crates, supplies and everything, with this emblem of a shield with a lion on it, which is the emblem and symbol for this trading post, the Lion Shield Costa. So if you took those supplies, you could return them and get paid, get some money, and maybe even a favor or something, which is always useful to have from a merchant. As per D&D tradition and what you should hopefully instill in your players, the first point of call and what the adventure sort of pushes the DM to do and what the DM should sort of guide the players into doing is going to the inn first up as their first point of call in the town. And the way that the adventure is sort of set up, it gives us a lot of NPCs in the inn itself, which have their own sort of rumors and sort of information that they can give the players. This is sort of a sandbox sort of situation that the players can sort of pick and choose what they want to do. So we are given several NPCs. There is Narth, an old farmer, Elsa, a gossipy barmaid, Lenar, who is a miner, Trilena, which is the innkeeper's wife, Pip, the son of Toblin, who is the innkeeper, and Freda, who is a weaver. Now, all of these NPCs have some sort of rumor, gossip, or some just sort of piece of information that then links to a sort of quest or something that the players can do. So they can sort of choose who they want to talk to. This means you're already on the hook for, how many is that, 6 or 7 NPCs that you're gonna have to come up with on the fly, which is always fun. I mean, this is part of why you're DMing, because you like to improvise, right? Then each one of these NPCs in the adventure gives sort of page reference and everything to which section their rumor sort of ties into. Now, 3 of these rumors, the ones from Trilena, from Pip, and from Freda, are all linked to the Redbrands, which are the sort of primary antagonist for this section. If in part 1 the primary antagonist was the goblins, in part 2 in Phandalin we are going to be dealing with the Redbrands. These are sort of a group of ruffians, thugs, a sort of typical gang or criminal element that you'll see in a small town terrorizing and causing all sorts of issues. Now, the information about the town is sort of spread across about 4 pages or so you get a good amount of detail. It's not like in the AD&D days where you would be told exactly where Farmer X was hiding his 2 gold pieces in the strong box on the 3rd. You don't get any of that. You don't need that. But it does give you a good amount of detail in order for you to sort of get comfortable with all of these locations and just be prepared for the players to go pretty much anywhere. So as I said, each NPC has a rumor which attaches to a quest. Each location then has another NPC that is attached to a further quest. So there's a few locations. I'll put the map back up and we'll go down the line and have a look at what's there. So there is the Eldermarth Orchard, where a retired adventurer lives. They have a quest going to the Old Owl Well. There is the Shrine of Luck, which is a sort of temple to the god or goddess of good luck and fortune. In the book it's Timora, I think. You can come up with your own name if you prefer, if you want to create your own pantheon. There's a quest there that has you dealing with a banshee, which is fun. There's the Sleeping Giant Tavern, which is where the Redbrands are. There's Tresendar Manor, which is the sort of dungeon that I was talking about. This is the Redbrand Hideout. There's Alderley Farm, which is a farm, of course. There is a quest to go and find a druid up in the ruins of Thunder Tree, which is a really cool quest. There's a reason why there's a dragon on the front cover of the starter set. The Townmaster's Hall, which is where the Townmaster Harbin Wester is. There's a couple of there's a quest board which has a couple of jobs there, a couple of quests that the players can do. And then there is the Phandalin Miners Exchange, which is a trading post where you can get a quest to sort of deal with the Redbrands. So this seems like a lot of locations, and it kind of is. It's a decent sized town. It's not like you're dealing with a city where I've had to use cities. I might put a map up of one of Torringry, which had, I think, 20 odd locations or so, and so I had to come up with information for all of them. But fortunately, the adventure gives you all the detail you need, so you're not going to be left with ideas for places but no actual concrete detail. You always want concrete detail. I found that my improvisation skill doesn't lie in creating quick locations on the fly. I need to have the detail there. I say this from experience. In the last session of my campaign, which we'll do a campaign diary next few days, we visited Topaz's Tumultuous Tinkering, which was a fantastic name, in my opinion. I was happy with it. But I didn't come up with anything. I didn't prepare any goods or sort of stock that this shopkeeper had. and so it was sort of just an awkward experience where not much really happened. The party left sort of disappointed and they hadn't bought anything, so make sure you prepare stuff. But for Phandalin specifically, there's a few key places that you could look at. There's a few places you could probably ignore. In my experience, in running this a couple of times, the Miners' Exchange was never really used, nor was the Orchard or the Shrine of Luck. So I would say the most important ones would be the Sleeping Giant Inn, the Alderleaf Farm, because the quest there is super cool, the Townmaster's Hall, and of course Tresendar Manor, which is the big dungeon that we're going to be looking at in the next video. When you're running this particular adventure, you're sort of in a lucky situation where the players probably aren't going to get here and say, screw this, let's go up to the big city or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about throwing away your prep because the players got bored or anything. You'll be fairly confident that they're going to be staying right here. So we've talked about the locations, talked about the places in the town. There's a few more locations on the map, which are sort of just people's houses. The way that the town is set up, this is a sort of almost like Western style frontier mining town that's pretty small, hasn't fully quite developed yet, so the houses themselves will be pretty small, modest homesteads. And from there we can start talking about the Redbrands, how to use them, and some improvements that we can give them to make them a little more interesting, a little more interesting than just the cliched fantasy bullies, because that can get really boring. And the way that we're going to be doing that is we're going to tie in the BBEG, the Black Spider. We're going to try and hook them more deeply into both the Redbrands and the town itself to really show that this is a cunning and scheming villain that has a lot of influence. So as written, the player characters will encounter the Redbrands in 3 different scenarios. Either they hear rumors from one of the NPCs and decide to go and investigate the Sleeping Giant Inn and confront them. They decide to investigate the Tresendar Manor, in which case we can skip the encounter and go straight to the dungeon. Or if they are sort of not really doing anything or not sure what to do, a group of 4 ruffians, change the numbers maybe depending on your party size, decide to pick a fight with the party in the street. So the Redbrands are bullies through and through. As I said, they don't have much of their own individual agenda. They all seem to be kind of dumb, is the implication that's given in the adventure, and they have a leader, Glassstaff, who carries a glass staff, hence the name, who seems to be giving them orders and organizing them. Now, Glassstaff has been hired by the Black Spider, who in turn has been using the Redbrands to sort of keep adventurers away and try and intimidate the locals and, you know, have this seedy element, drive people away from the town. So that information, you as the DM, you know that they're there because the Black Spiders hired them, but the players will only sort of find that out if they decide to interrogate or question one of the Redbrands and get that sort of information. And I don't like having that hidden behind, you have to make this choice in order to find it. I think that if we're having this villain that's sort of trying to have presence in the town, we should do a few more things to try and show that their presence is here. So I have a couple of ideas of how we could do this. We could describe, as the players are entering the town, they have this strange sense that they are being watched. And of course they are a new group of adventurers. They're very easy to spot, many eyes would be on them, but perhaps one of the players, someone who has a high wisdom or just a high perception score, might notice that on one of the roofs of the buildings nearby there is a large spider that spots them and very quickly scurries away when noticed. If you're an arachnophobe, if you don't like spiders, or if you don't like the imagery of a giant spider crawling on the roof, perhaps it's a raven or a crow, something sort of, you know, cliche, evil, sort of ominous. I'm sort of thinking of the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes, where it's a crow or a raven appears every time Lord Blackwood kills someone. I don't think that's a spoiler. No, it's a little detail, I would say. Or perhaps, if you don't like the spider or the animal idea, perhaps the Black Spider themselves is on a roof and spying on the party as they arrive. So let's talk about the Black Spider really quickly. As written, his name is Nesna. He is a drow, which is a dark elf, which is kind of boring. I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan for a couple of reasons. I'm not a fan of, one, the presumption that all dark elves are evil, that's not cool, and 2, that it has to be a male. I think that you could make the Black Spider female, you could make them non-binary, that's cool. I don't like it's just sort of, it's very cliched, it's very uninteresting to me. I enjoy subverting cliches or subverting expectations, doing things that they wouldn't be expecting. So feel free to change the Black Spider to a woman, to change them from a drow to a high elf, or to just a human, or something that's not, I don't know, so rooted in sort of not great sort of presumptions. I sort of like the idea, just sort of thinking now of changing the Black Spider to a dwarf. It makes sense that because there is eventually a sort of Wave Echo Cave has a forge of spells, which is sort of the big part of the adventure, so it sort of makes sense that a dwarf would be trying to get to this thing, more so because there are 3 other dwarves that are trying to get to it first. So that's something that you could change, could sort of improve the Black Spider a little bit. Now, having the villain appear and sort of watching the player character is going to put them on edge, remind them that there is something that is pulling the strings and manipulating events in order to achieve some goal that they are not sure of yet. Now, by this stage, they have a couple of clues that something is going on, the fact that they are being watched by either this evil, strange animal or by this mysterious figure. There's the orders that were given by the goblins to attack the caravan and capture Sildar and Gundren. And then we have the Redbrands, which we can use as the sort of other element to bring the Black Spider's influence really into the town. So the Redbrands are going to attack the players either in the tavern, or in the tavern, the inn, or in the street, which is cool. A bar fight is always fun. A street fight is also really fun as well. At this point, the party should be level 2, so they shouldn't be a crazy challenge, but still sort of a tough encounter for them. Now, a lot of my players come from sort of video game backgrounds, so a very common thing that I'll hear at the end of combat is, I loot the bodies. So let's use that sort of presumption to further tie in the Black Spider. We're going to use this to sort of reinforce the idea that 1, the Redbrands have a leader, Glassstaff, and 2, that they are here for a purpose. They're not sort of just being bullies and screwing around for no good reason. So we are going to do this by having some notes on the bodies that the players can find. You can really impress your players by creating physical notes. There's all sorts of ways that you can do this. You can write up a note in Microsoft Word, change to a handwritten font, print it out, fold it up, scrunch it. I know people do crazy stuff like using coffee grounds to sort of stain the paper, and then they bake it to give it that sort of parchment feel. I've never done that, but I've done a couple of sort of print out things that I've typed up, and these can be really fun. These sort of props can be really great at sort of hooking your players and sort of immersing them into the world. If you're not sure of what to write, if you're sort of stuck, I've got a couple of sample notes which I'll sort of read out now. We're here to frighten and intimidate, not murder and pillage. Make sure that people are scared, but don't do a stupid amount of damage. If another innocent is killed, you'll be fed to the Nothic, Glassstaff. Or alternatively, there's a group of adventurers that are coming in, keep an eye out. You can use this sort of bit to describe some of your players if you want to really freak them out to show that something's been watching them. If you see them, make sure you take them out. Glassstaff. I really like that first note because it hints at the Nothic, which is one of these strange creatures that we're going to be encountering in the dungeon in the Redbrand Hideout. But from there, after the players have dealt with the Redbrands, at least with the bar fight or the street fight, they are most likely going to be heading to the dungeon itself. And that is where we're going to leave it. We'll talk about the dungeon in another video. So that's my quick sort of advice, well, it was kind of quick, on how I use sort of cities, towns, etc. Use a map, make sure your locations are prepared. There's some detail in everything. For shops and stuff that have sort of a general sort of list of things, you can look in the player's handbook at the equipment section. So the smithy would probably have, you know, weapons and armor. You can price it as it is. in the handbook, or you can adjust the prices as you want. Perhaps Phandalin, it's a small town, so that'd be more expensive, whereas in a big city there would be a normal price, perhaps even cheaper because there's such an abundance of wares. I don't do economics, so I'm not sure about exactly how all of that stuff sort of works, but there's numbers in the player's handbook. Feel free to use those. And then we've talked about how we can sort of make the presence of the Black Spider known a little bit more. You can sort of feel their influence, feel that they are scheming and cunning, and that something is happening in the background. What specifically is happening in the background? I don't know. We'll talk about that in the next few videos, in the next couple of parts, but you don't need anything set in stone, I don't think, yet. If the player comes up with a theory, feel free to use that. A lot of stuff that's happened in my games, I have very quickly changed my plans because one of my players has said, oh, this must be blah, 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 and I think that's a really good idea. And so I'll quickly take that and I'll throw away a couple of things I had prepared. So don't feel tied down to any plan that you make now. Of course, it's cool to have a plan and sort of let it wait and simmer and let it all sort of build up, so when the players uncover it, they'll realize that, oh, this was clues and hints that we saw in like 10 sessions ago. That's always really cool as well. So really it's up to you, but I like to sort of not have anything too concrete just yet, especially while we're sort of just exploring the town and just seeing what's going on. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching. You can check out my other videos. There's cards you can click, campaign diaries, the other starter sets stuff, and all of that. I did a video about Iron Man, which was really fun to make, so please check that out. If you like it, you can do all the usual stuff. You can hit the thumbs up button, which would be super cool. You can share this around, and I think that's pretty much it. I'll see you guys some other time.